Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. We're so happy to have the opportunity to speak with you today in this roundtable format. Thanks for joining us for our first of what we hope to be a monthly series talks around professional growth. At Central Penn College, we have a long-standing history of graduating our students with career readiness and growth potential. And obviously, we believe education is essential to part of helping students and our community to succeed. So today we've assembled some really great people here from Central Penn to discuss how you might be able to retool, reskill, and succeed in an uncharted career path. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and introduce our panelists and give them a chance to tell you a little bit about themselves. So first we have our Dean of Career Services and Development, Steve Hassinger.
Good morning, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you this morning. A bit about myself. I've been at Central Penn about 17 and a half years working in career services. Prior to that, I also had 10 years of experience as a vocational specialist. So I've been working with career development for just about 28 years. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and an MED in student affairs. So that's a little bit about my background.
Thank you, Steve. And next up, we do have Kristen Fike, our Internship Coordinator.
Good morning. I've been with Central Penn for coming up on 6 years as an internship coordinator, and I've been working in the field of career development for about 13 years.
Thank you. And Trang Ru, our HR Director.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad you can join us this morning. Like Melissa said, my name is Trang Rio, and I'm currently the HR Director at Central Penn College. I've been with the college for also 6 years, like Kristen. And, you know, my role here at the college is to provide support for all HR functions. Prior to Central Penn, I also did HR in the healthcare industry.
And I'm Melissa Mahoney. I am the Dean of Admissions. I've been with Central Penn College for a little over 9 years. I'm also a two-time graduate from the college. I received my bachelor's degree in 2015, criminal justice. I also graduated from our Master's of Professional Studies in 2018. As the Dean of Admissions, I work very closely with our admissions counselors, and we take a lot of pride in working with our students, both prospective and current students, to assist them as they start looking into educational goals and trying to put together just a plan to be successful and help them work through balancing life and education and all the things that come with being a student and being in this world today. So thank you all for sharing a little bit of information about yourself. As I mentioned, all of our panelists here are part of the Central Penn College family. For those of you who may not know, the college was actually founded in 1881, started as a business school in downtown Harrisburg, eventually ended up locating over here to Somerdale, PA. Over the years, we've grown significantly in our program offerings. We offer associate's, bachelor's, and master's degrees. For over 15 years, we've been leaders in online education, and for over 100 years, this college has helped to train leaders in business, legal, technology, and healthcare professions. I want to go ahead and get started with the discussion. I'm going to kick it over to our Dean of Career Services and Development, Steve Hassinger.
Thank you, Melissa. You know, this is a really interesting and unprecedented time, really, for us. Not only are we dealing with a lot of unrest in the country, but obviously we're dealing with the effects of the COVID-19 situation. And I think what makes this situation so different from ones that I've experienced in the past is the fact that we have gone from one of the best labor markets and one of the best economies that I can remember to one of the worst, almost overnight because of COVID-19. So to give you an example of some numbers, last year, Pennsylvania's unemployment rate as of April of 2019 was 4.1%. That is a historically low number. The last time that the unemployment rate was that low in Pennsylvania was the first few months of 2000, when we were at 4%. some of the college students that we see at Central Penn now weren't even born then. So that was the lowest rate that they had seen. And actually, I would tell you, in Cumberland County, where our main campus is located, it was even lower. It was down to like 2.7% last April, which is great for job seekers. A little bit of a challenge for employers, perhaps, trying to find quality employees. Then we move into 2020. Things are going well. We're at 4.7% across the state in February. Goes to 5.8% in March and 15.1% in April. So within 2 months, we go up more than 10 percentage points in terms of our unemployment rate. People are now worried, am I going to have a job? Some of the layoffs that we've seen obviously have been temporary, and the good news is that those jobs are going to come back. However, there are jobs that are not going to come back. Case in point, Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. We knew that probably eventually toll taker jobs are going to go away, right? We've got Easy Pass, and technology is probably going to eliminate those jobs eventually. But that was accelerated as a result of COVID-19. Turnpike Commission said, you know what, for the last 3 months, we've been doing everything electronically and things are working okay. So 500 toll takers are out of jobs as of today. So people are starting to question, will I have a job? How will I get a job? Do I need to change careers from the one that I've been in order to be employable? And in some cases, they're going to need to retool. They're going to need to reskill. So those are the things that we want to talk about today. Maybe in some cases, they don't need to totally reskill and learn new skills, but they need to repackage the skills that they have currently. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to kick it back over to Dean Mahoney to start our panel discussion.
Okay. So I want to go ahead and start with some of the questions that were submitted prior to this roundtable. Please feel free to type in questions that you have in the chat. We are excited to answer those questions. We have all these great minds at the table, so we will certainly get to those questions as we see them come up. The first question I want to go ahead and ask is to Trang. The question is, should I change my career? Is now the right time, and how will I know?
Wow. All right. So I believe that the most important thing is to understand perhaps why you are making the career change. Are you in a rut with your career? Or is there something else out there you believe will make you happier in the long run? So maybe you can start making a list, make a pros and cons list about your job and ask yourself more specific questions like, what do I like? What don't I like? And what is currently pushing you to want a change? So, I think you just need to kind of assess, and perhaps you may like what you do, but maybe you want to do it at another organization or do it in a different industry. So I think that this exercise can really help you identify what it is you need to be happy, and that's the why that is driving you forward and making this change.
Thank you. And that's so true, because I think a lot of times we find ourselves staying in a career or maybe a job because of necessity, and happiness isn't always considered. So that's an important thing to consider. Thank you, Trang. Dean Hassinger, anything to add to that? I know you've worked in this field for a very long time and may have some insight as well.
Yeah, and what I always tell students and alumni or anybody that I'm working with really that's thinking about it, I tell them to know about 8 o'clock on Sunday night if it's time to change jobs or change careers. And the reason I say that is because all you have to do is go on Facebook at about 8 o'clock on Sunday night, And you're going to see, you know, friends that are saying, you know, can't the weekend just last longer? Or, you know, now I have to go back to work tomorrow. And, you know, I'm so blessed that I've been working in a position that I truly love. And at 8 o'clock Sunday night, I'm not dreading having to get up and go to work on Monday morning. And I know we can't all say that, obviously. So, you know, that's just one thing, that if you're dreading having to get up and go to work, maybe it's time to start thinking about other options. And as I think Trang referenced, you know, it may not be a totally new career field that you need to move into. You know, maybe it's just another employer, a different type of setting, something different that you're doing with the skill set that you currently have. We know that the #1 reason that people leave jobs is because of their boss or their supervisor. So ask yourself, as Trang said with that assessment, you know, is it the job that I don't like? Is it the field that I don't like? Or is it the current situation that I'm in? And I think that'll help you decide where you need to go from here.
Thank you, Steve. The second question that was submitted, I want to go ahead and, Steve, actually, if we could start with you on this one. The question is, what is the first step to changing careers?
Well, I think assessment is that first step. So, you know, people, when they're thinking about changing careers, again, Trang said, I think the first step is to assess who you are and what types of things are important to you as a person, what types of things do you like. And probably all of us at one point or another have done some type of personality assessment linked to careers. Here at Central Penn, we use something called Focus 2, which looks at personality, but it also looks at 4 other aspects of who we are. You know, what are we good at? What are we not so good at? And exploring different career options. So maybe you have an idea of a job or a career or a field that you're interested in. Take the time to really do some research and find out about that job, find out about that career. I had a student one time I was working with who was getting ready to graduate, and he was getting an associate's degree in criminal justice. And I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to be a probation officer. And I said, okay, so you're going to continue on, you're going to get your bachelor's degree. And he said, no, I just want to get my associate's degree. And I said, okay, you realize that in the state of Pennsylvania, you're probably not going to get a probation officer position with an associate degree. So researching the jobs to find out what's required with that particular job and what's going to be involved, what the outlook is like. If you're in a situation where you're the primary breadwinner for your family, I was just talking to an alumnus yesterday at the end of the day about this, and she's looking to totally change careers. And her husband works, but she has 3 kids, and her husband doesn't have the same level of education, and she is the primary breadwinner for the family. So a real consideration there is, what is that job that I'm looking to get into going to pay? So assessment and research, I think, are really the first 2 things that are very important.
Mm-hmm. And Steve, if I can just add to what Steve shared, like during this research, perhaps you want to talk to people who are already in the field you are interested in, you know, and if you don't know anybody in that new career field that you want to be in, I would suggest that you connect with folks on your LinkedIn profile. So just make sure that, you know, you have a robust LinkedIn profile and get connected with those folks who are, like I said, in the field that you're interested in. And I think so too, that once you have a good understanding, then you can start to see where the opportunities are and what, like Steve said, what might match your skill sets and your experience and your interest.
Yeah. So the next question is in regard to going back to school. It was, should I go back to school? And what are the benefits to continuing my education? So I'll take that, since that's what I get to do all day is chat with people about that very question. That is a question that ultimately only you can determine. And something in admissions that my team really works hard to do is, and it's already been kind of talked about, and that's figure out why. What's your why? Why are you even looking into education at this time? And the answer is so different for every person. Some people are looking because they personally need this achievement. It's a goal of theirs. It's something that they're doing for themselves. And they may have a great job that they're extremely happy in, but they would like to do this because it's something to personally benefit themselves. But then we're finding more and more that people are reaching out to us because maybe it's out of necessity. Maybe they've worked in their field for 20 years and they worked their way up without a college degree, but times are changing a bit and industries have changed, and now they're being told, hey, you need to go back to school or you may not be working here in a few years. We have single mothers, we have stay-at-home mothers who they're coming to this like realization moment in their life. It's their time now. You know, maybe the kids just went off to school and it's their time to retrain, and they're looking to say, okay, how do I get back out there and how do I get myself educated in a way that will benefit my family and then also my own personal achievement. So we work with a lot of different individuals with different scenarios, and I'd say in order to answer that question of should I go back to school, just like it was said earlier, you do want to, you know, assess the situation. What do you want to do? Research that job. A lot of jobs now are requiring degrees. And so if your passion and the direction for you is towards a career that needs a degree, then absolutely it's time. But one of the things you really want to consider is, who's your support system? Do you have it? And if you don't, identify who you could lean on to support you, because one of the most challenging things about going back to school is not always the work that you put in, it's the way that you find support, motivate yourself, and make the time. Because we all know life is so crazy busy. And there's never a time where things just slow down and stand still and provide that time for you to just focus on school. There's always going to be something. So definitely find that support system, and really you're going to know when it's time, because you're going to get that nudge. And we're here to support you if Central Penn's that place that you decide to continue the education at. Benefits to continuing, you know, obviously career growth opportunities many times are a benefit of going back to school. Personal achievement is huge. You know, like someone else had said earlier, Belief Trend, you know, you want to make sure you're happy. And sometimes when you're in a career that doesn't make you happy, or you're feeling like there's this achievement that I've been meaning to, you know, strive towards, and I just haven't taken that step, sometimes that keeps you from feeling happy because you feel like you just haven't done something for you. So you'll know, and the benefits are different for each person, but that's what I found in this field. I wanted to just take a look here. This other question that was submitted, what are some things that I should mention on my resume or at interviews when I'm changing careers? I'm going to open that up. Whoever would like to take that question to go ahead and give some feedback.
Well, I'll go first. So I've done talent acquisition for many years now, and I've seen all kinds of resumes. And this is very basic advice that I'm giving to you right now, but it applies to not only, you know, changing careers, but really to everyone who is looking for a job. Keep in mind that your resume is the first thing that a recruiter looks at. So it's very important to make a good first impression. So make sure everything is spelled correctly. You know, all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted, because that's your first impression, perhaps, to your new employer. But back to your question, Melissa, about changing careers. I think your cover letter is the perfect opportunity to sell yourself as a strong candidate, even if you have not taken the most direct path. So write a cover letter that briefly explains your career change, but mostly focuses on how your past career experience has prepared you for this new role. And it might be kind of new to you, so I would just suggest that you, you know, feel comfortable telling your story by sharing and practicing with your friends, so that, you know, that's who you are. And then most of all, just be ready to share your passion, excitement for this new career path that you're looking to get into. Because, you know, your enthusiasm when you're in an interview could be one of your biggest selling points. So definitely focus on the cover letter. And then as far as the resume, you may want to consider using a hybrid resume, which allows you to list your most relevant skills near the top of the page. Or you might want to consider putting a summary of your work experience and your skill sets. And then you can list your work experience like after that.
Yeah, and along those lines, Melissa, you know, I tell people that the mindset we typically have when we're writing a resume is we're thinking backwards. Okay, so what I mean by that is we're thinking about that job and we start listing on the resume the things that we did most often at that job, right? And what I challenge our students and our alumni to do is to think forward when they're writing the resume. Okay, so what's the goal here? What's the job that I want to get? And along the lines of what Trang was saying, then emphasizing those skills, those transferable things that you did at that previous job. Give you two examples. Person I was speaking with yesterday has been a physical therapist assistant for the last 11 years, and she worked in the physical therapy field even prior to that. Now she's transitioning to accounting. Okay, that's a pretty big change, all right? So we look at her resume and, you know, it talks about the modalities that she used and the equipment that she used and so forth. Those things probably aren't relevant in the accounting role that she's going to transition to. But as we talked, she said, well, you know, billing was very important as a PTA. Yeah, okay, there's a transferable skill that we need to get on the resume that she was able to document what she was doing with billing in mind and taking care of billing procedures and so forth. Give you an example from my wife. She worked for 22 years as a business manager of a dental office. And when she decided she was going to transition to another type of position, one of the positions she applied for was a human resources position with the state. So when she listed what she did at the dentist office, she talked about, you know, maintaining, you know, 2,000 files or whatever it was, you know, and doing the scheduling for the dentist and so forth. And she submitted that and learned from the state that the position that she applied for, she was not qualified for. And she came to me and she said, you know, look, here's the description of the position. I've done all these things. I said, well, let's look at what you submitted. And when we looked at what she submitted, it didn't mention the fact that she was the HIPAA compliance officer for 3 different offices. It didn't mention the fact that she had created a training manual for employees at 3 different offices, because over the course of 22 years, she didn't see those as her major responsibilities. But for that role she wanted to get into, that kind of knowledge and that skill set was extremely important. So once we revised the resume and she resubmitted it, all of a sudden she's qualified for the position. So think forward, backward, and emphasize transferable skills on both the resume and in the interview as well.
Thank you, Steve. No, I love that. I think that a lot of people do think backwards, and if you just switch your thinking, how different that made things for your wife. Okay, so Kristen, I'd like to toss you this question. Someone had asked, are there volunteer opportunities that can help retool me for a career change?
Absolutely. There are 2 ways that I always recommend to our students. The first is to volunteer and provide community service. either in your area of study or your area of expertise. This would help you build your resume and will also help you build a network in that field. So for our students specifically, I will recommend to allied health students to volunteer in a hospital, business students to volunteer in a nonprofit organization, criminal justice students volunteer at a facility like Valley Youth House. The second way is an internship. An internship is another very valuable way to volunteer to help you retool. And internships have had the stereotype of only being for traditional college-age students, but that's not the case. You are really never too old for an internship. And in the past few years, I've actually seen a term called returnships. So returnships are bringing employees back to work after a break. So maybe it is the mom who has, stayed at home with her children and they're returning to school. Maybe it's someone who just lost their job due to COVID. Internships overall help anyone make connections in their field. A lot of our students at Central Penn will walk away from their internship with not only a letter of recommendation, but sometimes they're able to utilize their supervisor from their internship site as a reference for future employment. Internships are a valuable way for any student changing careers especially. We have a large number of continuing education students at Central Penn, and more of our non-traditional age students are choosing to do an internship so they can gain experience in that new field.
So something that I think some of the individuals on this call may be thinking, who maybe are kicking around the idea of an internship, is like, how would they find an internship during this time? So it's a weird time for all of us, and how would you suggest going about looking into something like that?
Sure. It has definitely proven to be a challenge in the last few months. Many summer internships are going to be remote, which means students or individuals will be doing a majority of their time remotely from home and also some time in the office. We are hoping in the fall that things can somewhat go back to normal, where students can spend more time in the physical office or location. But I always recommend, if you are enrolled at a school right now, to start with your career development center and start with them. For us specifically, we have an online career center where we post internship opportunities. So we get them pretty much on a weekly basis. We'll post them for our students to view. And we also host different events throughout the year where our students can go and just network with employers. I always recommend to network for an internship. Network while you're volunteering, network when you have a guest speaker in your classroom, network when you go on a field trip. Honestly, you never know, that individual that you're talking with, you never know what type of resource they might be able to be for you in the future.
Thank you. Okay, here's another question. Steve, how do you get your foot into your career or a career with only educational experience under your belt?
Well, I think the things that Kristen just talked about are extremely important. It's the catch-22. How do I gain experience if nobody's willing to hire me, right? So being able to do an internship or to volunteer in something that is somewhat related to what you want to do is a great way to start building those connections as well as building that experience. And your resume is not just about your education and your work history. It's about any experience that you have to bring to the table. So the things that Kristen just talked about definitely should go on your resume as well, particularly if they're relevant to the type of job that you want to get into. The other thing that I think is extremely important is networking. And I think Trang alluded to this a little bit earlier. Who are your connections? Starting to build that network. And you know, one of the great things, not great things, but one of the advantages of the COVID-19 situation is people were more accessible for the last 3 months. You know, we're currently collecting work information for our graduate report, and we kept saying, you know what, the nice thing is people are home now, we can get them, right? But it's also a time where you can still network with professionals, you know, in that field. So do you have a LinkedIn account? You know, if you do, or if you don't, start to build one. You know, if you have that account, who are people that you might want to connect with? And I know that Sean is on here, or at least he was earlier, and I know Sean would tell you if your company that you work for is a member of the local chamber, you know, what a wonderful way to be able to build connections and network. The other thing I would recommend are local groups such as Harrisburg Young Professionals, West Shore Young Professionals, and you know, and young professionals. I think they'll all tell you that they don't necessarily eliminate somebody because of their age. Because I've joked with them many times, I'm too old to be a member of Young Professionals, and they said they would still take me, but you know, generally 21 to 40, something like that. So joining a young professionals organization is a great way to network as well. And even in this time when we were in red and yellow zones prior to green, there were still networking opportunities. You know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I jumped on a Coffee and Connections Zoom event like this with the Harrisburg Chamber, you know, just to chat with colleagues and make some connections out there. So networking, and you know what? It might even be your hairdresser. You know, if you're looking for another job and you're getting your hair done, tell your hairdresser you're looking for another job. You don't know who's going to be sitting in that same chair 2 or 3 appointments from now. You know, it might be somebody that says, hey, we just had an employee leave and we need to hire an accounts receivable person. And she says, you know what? My earlier appointment's looking to get into the accounting field, you know? So really let people know that you're looking and build that network.
And if I can just add, I saw a survey recently that showed, I think like 85% of all jobs are filled using networking. Yeah. So yeah, that's very big.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, it was funny, Steve, as you were talking about, you know, talking to your hairdresser, you know, even just talking to people just to talk to them, even not telling them always that you're looking for a job. I mean, I was thinking back to how I got into higher education in the first place, and it was through literally working 3 jobs or 2 or 3 jobs at the time, and I was waitressing, and I was working those jobs because I was just trying to pay the bills, and I just really connected with the table, got to talking, and I ended up getting a business card and being told, hey, I could use someone like you, give me a call, you know. And that's not something, I didn't go into work that day and be like, oh, I hate this, I'm going to try to get a new job and tell someone. But networking and putting yourself out there and getting to know people can easily propel that as well.
Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah. Okay, so I do have one last question here, and then I will take a look at the chat and see if we have anything else that was submitted. Trang, this one's for you. This says, how would I legally refuse vaccinations if it were against a personal belief and or a medical recommendation from a doctor? What if they threaten to fire me or rescind my job offer?
Wow. Well, I am not an employment lawyer. So I would say that perhaps she may want to rethink if she wants to work at that employer.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's going against, you know, your beliefs,
right.
And maybe something to think about. Sure. Okay. Let's see here. I believe that's all of our questions at this time. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope that you found the information shared and the conversation had beneficial. We're going to go ahead and put a slide up as we close here with some information. If you would like to reach out to any of the panelists that were here today to ask any additional follow-up questions, perhaps you log off and you think, oh shoot, should I ask this? Or you know, whatever the case may be. I know I do my great thinking as I blow dry my hair in the morning. If you think of something, reach out to one of us via email. We will have our information up on the slide momentarily. And thank you so much for coming out. Alum and students, career service, just for a quick note, career services is available to you at any point in time. So feel free to reach out to them. And then an additional announcement, our next term will be starting in July. We start 4 times per year. We'll start July, October, January, and April. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions about Central Penn's education. Thank you. Have a great day.